Prepositional phrases are our first phrases in our phrase unit. And you've covered prepositional phrases before. Prepositions, remember, on the big idea is anything a cat can do to a box, over, under, around, through, behind, beneath. But we also have come to know that there are some additional weird prepositions. There are lots of lists available, and becoming familiar with the common prepositions really helps this. But really, prepositions are always built by some preposition plus a noun and any modifiers that may go with that noun. Now, an adjective phrase is going to do exactly what adjectives do. It's going to be a prep phrase modifying a noun. It will answer those adjective questions of which kind or which one. Now, typically at this level, finding the prep phrases isn't much of a challenge. So we ordered a dish of salsa and a basket of tortilla chips. So what does all of salsa tell you more about? It tells me more about which dish. Makes it an adjective. Of tortilla chips tells me which basket. Makes it an adjective. No one in the class has seen the movie yet. Well, in is a common preposition. In the class. In the class is telling me more about which no one. Not no one in the theater, no one on the street. It's no one in the class, which group of no one. So that makes this also an adjective. The picture of their candidate in today's newspaper is not at all flattering. So, of their candidate in today's newspaper, at all. Now, of their candidate is telling me more about the picture. So that makes this an adjective. In today's newspaper, does that tell me more about which candidate or which picture? Well, it happens to tell me about which picture, which makes it also an adjective. Now, this at all back here is kind of a weird one, and it's not an adjective. It's snuck on there. So it actually happens to tell me to what extent it's not flattering. So just as a preview, this one is an adverb, which segues us into adverb phrases. Now, just like regular adverbs, adverb phrases are going to be a prep phrase that as a unit acts like an adjective, an adverb. Now remember, adverbs modify adjectives, adverbs, or verbs. Their key questions are why, where, when, and the great one, to what extent. If it answers those key questions, it's an adverb. So the mole burrowed under the lawn. Where did the mole burrow? Under the lawn. Althea Gibson was graceful on the tennis court. On the tennis court tells me where she's graceful. Now, what kind of a word is graceful? Was is a linking verb. Who or what was? Althea Gibson. What has to follow linking verbs? Predicate nominative or a predicate adjective. Graceful is a predicate adjective. What tells you more about adjectives? An adverb. So don't be afraid if you know what word it points to. Don't be afraid to back up and figure out what that word is for sure instead of guessing. Because most often you'll point to the right word, but if you panic and don't take your time to think through that word, you still may choose the wrong adverb or adjective. The child speaks quite clearly for a 2-year-old. So for a 2-year-old tells you when or why or to what extent they speak quite clearly. Now, it doesn't really matter which of these 3 words it exactly goes back to, because speaks is an action verb, quite is an adverb, clearly is an adverb. So this whole thing kind of modifies this whole concept of speaks quite clearly all of those pieces make that an adverb. There's no question. After the storm, the town grew quiet. After the storm tells me when they grew or when they grew quiet, but again, this happens to be a linking verb. Town is the subject, quiet is a predicate adjective. So even if you think it's more about quiet, it's still pointing to an adjective or to a verb. This is an adverb. She won the contest by 2 points. Now, by 2 points doesn't tell me which contest. It tells me how she won, or to what extent she won. Won happens to be the action verb. That makes this the adverb. Now, adjectives and adverbs can be removed, so you can check it. So we could, in this first one, say, the mole burrowed. It's not a great sentence, but you can take it out. Althea Gibson was graceful. Now, the other trick between adjectives and adverbs is adverbs can be moved to the front of the sentence or to the back, and the sentence still basically makes sense. Adjectives, you can't do that. So if we look at this next one, if we said, on the tennis court, comma, Althea Gibson was graceful, it makes sense. But if we would go back and try that test with something like in the class, if we tried to move that first and said in the class, no one has seen the movie yet, it doesn't really work. Of their candidate, the picture in today's paper doesn't make sense. Adjectives have to stay very close to the words they modify. Adverbs can roam a little further away. So some cautions and some hints. In addition to what I was just talking about, moving them, be careful to not confuse preps with, beginning with to, with infinitive phrases. There's more on that in the infinitive phrase video, but remember prep phrases are always going to be to plus a noun. Infinitive phrases are going to be to plus a verb. So just be sure to make sure you're paying attention to which structure you have. An example, going to Australia is a prepositional phrase versus to learn, which is an infinitive phrase. So what I would recommend is to find the prepositions first, then go back and label each one by asking yourself the key questions and pointing at those words. So good luck with prepositional phrases.